In April 2025, one of the most respected astronomers at the University of Cambridge looked at data from the James Webb Space Telescope and told the world that this was the strongest evidence yet that life exists beyond Earth. The planet was 124 light-years away. The chemical detected was dimethyl sulfide, a molecule produced on Earth almost exclusively by living marine organisms. The signal was thousands of times stronger than anything found in Earth's atmosphere. And the astronomer said with genuine confidence that, if confirmed, this would mean the planet was teeming with life. Then, 9 months later, a different team of scientists reanalyzed the same data using different methods, and the evidence evaporated. This is the full story of humanity's search for alien life, told through the 3 most compelling pieces of evidence science has produced so far. Why each of them electrified the world, why each of them remains contested, and what a landmark survey of scientists published in June 2026 revealed about what the scientific community actually believes when nobody is writing a press release. The planet at the center of the most recent and most dramatic claim is called K2-18b. It sits in the constellation Leo, 124 light-years from Earth, which means the light we observe from it left before the pyramids of Egypt were built and has been traveling through interstellar space ever since. It is classified as a sub-Neptune, meaning it is larger than Earth, but smaller than the ice giants Uranus and Neptune, roughly 2.6 times Earth's diameter. It orbits a red dwarf star, a smaller and cooler star than our Sun, in what astronomers call the habitable zone, the orbital distance at which liquid water could theoretically exist on the planet's surface. For years, researchers had debated whether K2-18b might be a Hycean world, a planet covered by a global liquid water ocean topped by a hydrogen-rich atmosphere. The Hycean world hypothesis was theoretical, but it made K2-18b one of the most intensely studied exoplanets in the James Webb Space Telescope's early mission. In 2023, the Cambridge team, led by astronomer Niku Madhusudan, published their first JWST analysis of K2-18b's atmosphere and reported a low-confidence hint of dimethyl sulfide, DMS, in the planetary spectrum. On Earth, DMS is produced primarily by marine phytoplankton and bacteria. It is one of the gases responsible for the characteristic smell of the ocean. It breaks down relatively quickly in an atmosphere under ultraviolet radiation, which means that finding it in large quantities requires a continuous biological source, producing it faster than it degrades. The 2023 signal was too weak to claim, but it was enough to motivate more observations. Then came April 17, 2025. Madhusudan's team published a follow-up paper in the astrophysical journal Letters, reporting significantly stronger results from new JWST observations using the MIRI instrument in the mid-infrared. The new data showed spectral features consistent with both DMS and a related molecule called dimethyl disulfide, DMDS, at a 3 sigma confidence level. 3 sigma in statistics means there is roughly a 0.3% probability that the signal is a random fluctuation, which sounds definitive, but in astronomy is actually considered insufficient for a confirmed detection. The formal standard for a confirmed astronomical discovery is 5 sigma, a 0.0005% probability of being a random fluctuation. Nevertheless, Madhusudan told reporters that this was the strongest evidence yet there's possibly life out there, and that he could realistically say the signal could be confirmed within 1 to 2 years. He added that if the association with life is real, the planet will be teeming with life, because the quantities detected were thousands of times higher than DMS levels in Earth's own atmosphere. The global media response was immediate and intense. Headlines announced that scientists had found alien life, that we were not alone, that the discovery would change everything. And the scientific community, which is accustomed to seeing its careful language stripped of its qualifications in translation to headlines, reacted with something between cautious excitement and pointed concern. MIT planetary scientist Sarah Seeger, one of the world's leading experts on exoplanet atmospheres and biosignatures, said publicly that with thousands of exoplanets in view, the temptation to overinterpret is strong, and that some were jumping the gun. She said that enthusiasm was outpacing evidence. Other researchers raised a specific technical concern: the molecular input set used in Madhusudan's retrieval analysis. The list of molecules whose spectral fingerprints the model considered when fitting the data was highly constrained. By not including all possible alternative explanations, the analysis may have attributed spectral features to DMS that were actually produced by other molecules, in particular ethane, which has overlapping spectral features in the relevant wavelength range, and which would be expected as a photochemical byproduct of any DMS that was genuinely present in large quantities. By July 2025, multiple independent teams had published reanalyses of the K2-18b data. A NASA-led study uploaded to the Archive preprint server found no conclusive evidence of DMS, when the analysis was expanded to include the full suite of JWST observations, rather than just the MIRI data used in the April paper. 3 separate teams, using different retrieval codes and different molecular input sets, reached different conclusions about what the atmospheric spectrum of K2-18b actually shows. Some confirmed methane and carbon dioxide. Some found evidence consistent with an oxygen-poor sub-Neptune with no liquid water surface. None found a statistically robust independent confirmation of DMS or DMDS. A paper by Luis Wellbanks of Arizona State University and colleagues, published in January 2026, summarized the situation most directly. The title of Universe Today's coverage of that paper said it plainly: how the evidence for alien life on K2-18b evaporated. To be precise about what this means and what it does not mean, the evaporation of the DMS evidence does not mean K2-18b has no life. It means the evidence that was claimed for life was not statistically robust enough to withstand independent scrutiny. The planet still orbits in the habitable zone of its star. It still has a hydrogen-rich atmosphere. It is still a Hycean world candidate. The question of whether it harbors life remains genuinely open. What closed is the claim that we had our strongest evidence yet. We did not. We had a signal at 3 sigma that fractured into ambiguity when examined from multiple angles. That is how science is supposed to work. And understanding that process is essential to understanding what the search for alien life actually looks like from the inside. The second major piece of evidence in this story comes from Mars, and it is older and in some ways more compelling than the K2-18b story, even though it has received less breathless coverage. In July 2024, NASA's Perseverance rover drilled a rock core from an arrowhead-shaped formation in the ancient riverbed environment of Jezero Crater's Bright Angel region. The rock was named Chayava Falls. The core sample drilled from it was named Sapphire Canyon. After more than a year of analysis involving researchers from multiple institutions and an independent peer review process, the results were published in the journal Nature in September 2025. The finding was stated carefully and precisely. Sapphire Canyon contains potential biosignatures. The specific features that earned that designation were striking. The rock showed 2 distinctive patterns: small dark spots that researchers called poppy seeds, and larger irregular blotches called leopard spots. On Earth, these patterns form when microbes use organic material, sulfur and phosphorus in surrounding rock as an energy source, through a process called redox metabolism, excreting iron-bearing minerals as a byproduct. The minerals found concentrated in and around those spots in Chayava Falls included vivianite, an iron phosphate, and greigite, an iron sulfide. Both are commonly produced by microbial redox activity on Earth. The combination of those minerals with the spatial distribution of the spots and with the organic carbon, sulfur, and phosphorus present in the rock matrix formed a pattern that researchers described as exactly the kind of chemistry that could have been a rich source of energy for microbial metabolisms. Using a framework called the CoLD scale, which stands for Confidence of Life Detection and runs from 1 to 7, scientists placed the Sapphire Canyon sample at step 3, indicating that the signal is biologically interesting, contamination has been ruled out, and the features cannot be straightforwardly explained by known abiotic processes. Katie Stack Morgan, Perseverance's project scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, said explicitly that abiotic explanations for what they observed were less likely given the paper's findings, but could not be ruled out. NASA Acting Administrator Sean Duffy called it the closest we have ever come to discovering life on Mars. He was careful not to say they had found life. He was saying, as precisely as he could, that this was the most suggestive evidence yet from the surface of another planet. The Sapphire Canyon sample is one of 30 rock cores that Perseverance has collected in sealed tubes that currently sit on the surface of Mars, waiting for the Mars sample return mission to bring them back to Earth. In laboratories on Earth, with instruments far more sensitive than anything that can be miniaturized and sent to Mars, those samples can be analyzed at a level of detail that will either confirm or definitively rule out a biological origin for the features inside Sapphire Canyon. That sample return mission is the most scientifically urgent planetary mission NASA could fly. Whether the political and budgetary will to execute it exists in the current environment remains an open and deeply concerning question. The third piece of evidence is the oldest and in some ways the most chemically elegant. It comes from Enceladus, a small moon of Saturn whose south polar region is covered with fractures in the ice crust from which enormous plumes of water vapor, ice particles, and organic molecules spray continuously into space. NASA's Cassini spacecraft, which orbited Saturn from 2004 to 2017, flew directly through those plumes and analyzed their chemistry in extraordinary detail. Cassini found water ice, carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, molecular hydrogen, silica nanoparticles, and complex organic molecules, including some that had never been detected in space before. The silica nanoparticles and the molecular hydrogen pointed to hydrothermal activity at the seafloor of Enceladus's subsurface ocean, water circulating through hot rock at temperatures and pressures where, on Earth, hydrothermal vents support thriving ecosystems of organisms that derive all of their energy from chemical reactions between water and rock, with no need for sunlight. The presence of molecular hydrogen specifically indicated that the water-rock reactions occurring on Enceladus's seafloor were actively ongoing. Methane was also present in quantities that were difficult to explain through purely geological processes alone, leading some researchers to propose that methanogenic microorganisms, the same type of microbe found in hydrothermal environments on Earth, could be producing the methane as a metabolic byproduct. Cassini found all of this without a mission designed specifically to look for life. Its instruments were not astrobiology instruments in the sense that Perseverance's Sherlock spectrometer is. If Cassini found that much in the plumes, a dedicated future mission to Enceladus, carrying a life detection instrument and flying through the plumes at low relative velocity to collect and analyze samples in space, has a genuine possibility of producing a definitive biosignature detection or a definitive null result. Multiple mission concepts exist. None has yet been funded and approved for launch. Before Enceladus, before K2-18b, before Perseverance drilled its first rock, there was a meteorite. ALH-84001 is a 4.5 billion-year-old rock from Mars, discovered in the Allen Hills of Antarctica in 1984, and identified as Martian. In origin, years later, through the analysis of gases trapped inside it that matched the composition of Mars's atmosphere. In 1996, a team of NASA scientists led by David McKay announced in the journal Science that they had found evidence inside ALH-84001, consistent with past Martian microbial life. The evidence included carbonate globules, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, magnetite crystals similar to those produced by certain bacteria on Earth, and what appeared to be microscopic fossilized structures resembling bacteria. Then, President Bill Clinton made a statement from the South Lawn of the White House calling it a potentially profound discovery. The internet, still in its infancy, briefly crashed under the traffic generated by the announcement. Over the following years, every piece of evidence in the 1996 paper was contested and alternative explanations were proposed. The carbonate globules could form without biology at high temperatures. The PAHs could be contamination from Earth. The magnetite crystals, while similar to biogenic ones, were also consistent with abiotic formation processes. The microscopic structures were far smaller than any known bacterium, prompting debate about whether structures that small could even house the biochemical machinery necessary for life. By the early 2000s, the scientific consensus had shifted away from the 1996 claim without definitively refuting it. ALH-84001 remains the most famous and most studied meteorite in history, and the question of what its internal chemistry actually records has never been completely closed. It set the tone for every alien life claim that followed. A signal emerges. The community responds with excitement. Independent analysis introduces complications. The claim retreats from certainty into ambiguity. The rock keeps it secret. There is also the Murchison meteorite, which fell in Australia in 1969 and has been studied intensively ever since. It contains more than 14,000 distinct organic compounds, including amino acids, nucleobases, the nitrogen-containing building blocks of DNA and RNA, and porphyrins, molecules with structural similarities to the chlorophyll in plant cells. Scientists have confirmed these structures are not contamination from Earth. They formed inside the meteorite before it arrived here in space through abiotic chemistry. The Murchison meteorite does not suggest life in space. It demonstrates that the chemistry of life's building blocks arises naturally through purely chemical processes in the interstellar medium and in primitive planetary bodies. What it proves is that the universe manufactures life's ingredients as a matter of course, without biological assistance. The step from those ingredients to living organisms is the step that remains unobserved and unconfirmed. Then there is K2-18b's older cousin in terms of controversial history, the phosphine claim from Venus in 2020. On Earth, phosphine is produced almost exclusively by biological processes or in industrial contexts. No known abiotic process in planetary atmospheres was expected to produce phosphine in the quantities claimed. The detection made international headlines. It was also challenged within months by reanalyses that found the original data reduction contained errors that inflated the signal strength. Subsequent studies disagreed about whether phosphine was present at all, present at reduced quantities, or absent entirely. The phosphine claim has never been definitively confirmed or definitively refuted. It remains in a state of contested ambiguity that Venus missions planned for the late 2020s and early 2030s may eventually resolve. The state of the entire field was captured in a survey of scientists published by Science Alert in June 2026. Researchers across astrobiology, planetary science, and exoplanet science were asked directly what they believed. The first case concerned K2-18b. The second concerned the Mars Chiava Falls rock. Surprisingly, the survey revealed that we usually don't know what the majority of scientists actually think when a scientific controversy dominates headlines, because press officers and journalists often quote a handful of experts. The survey showed a scientific community that is simultaneously more hopeful than at any previous point in the history of the search for life beyond Earth, and more cautious about any specific claim, because it has now watched too many headlines promise proof that we are not alone, only to see the evidence complicate itself on closer examination. What the survey revealed, when averaged across hundreds of responses, was something close to cautious optimism. The majority of scientists surveyed believed that microbial life had probably existed on Mars in the ancient past when liquid water was present on the surface. A significant plurality believed that life of some kind probably exists somewhere in the universe beyond Earth. Far fewer believed that any currently available evidence meets the scientific standard for confirmed detection. The gap between believing life probably exists and having confirmed evidence it does is precisely the gap that the next decade of space science is designed to close. The instruments that could close that gap exist or are nearly complete. The Mars Sample Return mission would bring the Sapphire Canyon core and 29 other samples from Jezero Crater to Earth-based laboratories capable of detecting biosignatures at a level of sensitivity that no in-situ instrument on Mars can match. A dedicated Enceladus life-finding mission could fly through the plumes with a mass spectrometer 100 times more sensitive than anything Cassini carried, and either detect living organisms directly or rule out life at the levels Cassini's chemistry suggested were possible. The James Webb Space Telescope will continue observing K2-18b and dozens of other Hycean world candidates, building larger statistical samples that will either confirm a biosignature pattern across multiple planets or identify the abiotic chemistry that is mimicking one. And the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, launching August 30th, 2026, will add its sensitivity to the search for planets where biosignatures might be detectable. The strongest confirmed evidence of alien life that currently exists is a set of convergent hints, none of which has crossed the 5 sigma threshold, and none of which has survived independent reanalysis without complication. What has survived, and what grows stronger with each passing year of new data and new instruments, is the conviction that life beyond Earth is not an extraordinary hypothesis requiring extraordinary proof. It is the statistically expected outcome of the chemistry that the universe clearly produces everywhere we look, from interstellar comets carrying water from dead stellar systems to hydrothermal vents on ocean moons of gas giants to sub-Neptune exoplanets with biosignature candidates in their atmospheres to ancient Martian rocks that contain the mineral patterns of microbial redox metabolism. We have not confirmed alien life. We have confirmed that the places where life could exist are far more numerous than we imagined before we had the instruments to look. We have confirmed that the chemical building blocks of life appear throughout the galaxy in comets, meteorites, molecular clouds, and planetary atmospheres with a consistency that makes life's ingredients look less like a rare accident and more like a predictable product of the universe's chemistry. And we have confirmed that the instruments capable of finding life, if it is, there are now either in operation or about to launch. The answer to the question of whether we are he alone is not going to come from a press conference claiming the strongest evidence, yet only to have that evidence evaporate 9 months later under independent scrutiny. It is not going to come from a single dramatic announcement that changes everything overnight. It is going to come from years of patient, rigorous, skeptical science conducted by people who understand that the most important discovery in the history of human civilization deserves exactly that level of care, that level of honesty, and that level of willingness to say we found something interesting. And we are not sure yet what it means. The search continues. And the weight of the evidence, taken as a whole and across all the sites and all the instruments and all the years of work that have gone into it, has never pointed more consistently toward a single uncomfortable and extraordinary conclusion. Life, in some form, somewhere, probably exists beyond the borders of our own world. The evidence we have is not proof, but it is not nothing, and every year it gets stronger.